You finally hit $20,000 in your bank account, and for about 10 minutes you feel like a responsible adult. Then something weird happens. The world starts pricing you differently. Your landlord sends the renewal offer, and it's not an offer. It's $2,150 a month instead of $1,875, and the email says, market adjustment like it's weather. Your phone dies, and suddenly you're not looking at a $180 replacement battery. You're staring at a $1,099 phone because, hey, you can afford it now. Your cousin texts about a bachelor weekend in Scottsdale. 3 nights, 1 villa, only $620 each before flights. And you don't even want to go. You just don't want to be the person who says no. Here's the part nobody warns you about. After $20,000, money stops being just a shield from emergencies and starts acting like a magnet for new obligations. Not because the universe hates you, because your brain updates your identity to someone with money, and your environment, friends, family, apps, subscriptions, even your own standards, quietly renegotiates the deal. So you do what most people do. You loosen up a little, you upgrade a few things. You say yes to plans you used to dodge. And 3 months later you check your balance and think, why does $20,000 feel smaller than $2,000 used to feel? Let me introduce you to a very real person, Maya. She's 29, makes $92,000, and she saved $20,000 by living with a roommate and freelancing on weekends. The moment she crossed $20,000, she moved into a solo apartment that cost $430 more per month, bumped her self-care spending from $120 to $260, and started financing a $38,000 car at $612 a month because the dealership said, your payment's totally manageable. That's an extra $1,182 a month. In 1 year, that's $14,184. Basically her entire big milestone evaporating into a new normal. I call this the $20,000 mirage. The number looks like freedom, but it triggers rules you didn't agree to. My name is Ben, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, psychology, and why your bank balance changes your behavior faster than it changes your life. Hit like and subscribe. It helps me make more videos like this. Now, before we dive into investing hacks or budgeting templates, we need to talk about the 12 rules money starts following after $20,000, because if you don't learn these rules, you'll keep saving money that you never actually get to keep. A weird thing happens right after you hit $20,000. You start making adult money moves that look responsible and quietly lock you into payments. Like the minute your savings crosses that line, your bank app starts pitching you. You're pre-approved for an $18,000 credit line. Not because you asked, because your balance makes you look safe. And if you take it, your minimum payment might be $360 a month if you run it up. That's not a disaster in week 1. It becomes a disaster in month 9, when I'll pay it off soon turns into, why is my paycheck already gone? Or you finally feel brave enough to fix the stuff you've been tolerating. You book the dentist you delayed, and the treatment plan comes back at $2,700. You replace the laptop that's been overheating for a year, $1,450. Then you decide to do it right and buy a standing desk for $520 and a chair for $380 because you're in pain and you're tired of cheaping out. That's $5,050 in like 3 clicks and 2 appointments. Your $20,000 didn't vanish, it just got assigned. Then come the invisible upgrades that don't feel like spending because they're systems. You bump your car insurance coverage because you can afford to be protected now, plus $48 a month. You switch to a nicer gym because it's cleaner and closer, $129 a month instead of $39. You add a meal service 2 nights a week, $16 a meal, 8 meals a month, that's $128. None of this feels like a splurge. It feels like becoming the person who has their life together. That's how it gets you. Here's the current reality. After $20,000, money stops feeling like a scoreboard and starts feeling like a tool belt. And suddenly, every problem in your life looks like it has a price tag you can finally pay. So you do, rapid fire. And then you look up and realize you didn't buy freedom, you bought commitments. But here's where it gets interesting. The danger isn't one big dumb purchase. It's that $20,000 gives you the confidence to say yes faster than you can calculate the long-term cost. You stop asking, can I afford this? and you start asking, is this worth it? And that sounds mature, until worth it becomes a mood. The first thing that changes is your default decisions. Before 20K, your brain's filter is avoid risk. After 20K, the filter becomes reduce friction. Less hassle, less discomfort, fewer delays. And that's when the 12 rules kick in, because money doesn't just sit there. After $20,000, it starts following patterns. And those patterns decide whether your savings becomes a foundation or just a revolving door. There's also something fascinating that happens when you cross 20,000. Your savings stops being untouchable and becomes available. Not available like you're reckless, available like you've finally earned the right to optimize. And optimization is where money starts leaking quietly. Here's a clean example. Before $20,000, you tolerate a little chaos. You schedule your own dentist appointment, you comparison shop flights, you cook when you can. After $20,000, you start paying to delete annoyance. You book the dentist that has a $165 new patient admin fee because they have appointments after 5 p.m. You pay $79 for a passport rush because you don't want to deal with the timeline. You pay $35 for delivery twice in a week because you're slammed. Each choice makes sense on its own because you're buying time and calm. The problem is your brain files all of it under adulting, not spending. This shift might seem small, but it has ripple effects. You start saying yes to costs you would have negotiated before, not because you're dumb, because you're tired. Decision fatigue is real, and $20,000 gives you a new shortcut. Pay to make the decision go away. That's rule number 1. Money starts following after $20,000. Friction becomes a bill. Then rule number 2 kicks in. Your new baseline becomes the new minimum. You buy a $240/year membership to a professional association because it could be good for networking. You actually attend one event, then it auto-renews. You sign up for a $24/month portfolio tracker because it makes you feel responsible even though you check it twice. These aren't painful purchases, they're identity purchases. They support the story, I'm the kind of person who has systems. Now, before we dive into the next layer, let's do some uncomfortable math. If you add 3 small optimizations, $24/month, $35/month, and $58/month, that's $1,404 a year. In 2 years, that's $2,808. And the kicker is, you'll swear you didn't change your lifestyle because none of it looked like a big-ticket item. Here's where it gets interesting. After $20,000, you also start treating your savings like a deductible. You're more willing to take a hit because you know you can cover it. So you stop fighting the $310 fee to break a lease early when a better apartment opens up. You stop pushing back on the $480 project retainer from a freelancer because you want it off your plate. It's not irresponsibility, it's confidence. But confidence spends fast. But here's something most people don't realize. The mechanism isn't that you start buying luxury. It's that you start buying relief, speed, and identity on subscription, on autopilot, and in a dozen tiny decisions that don't feel like decisions. And that's exactly why the rules matter. Because once money learns that pattern, it will keep following it until you interrupt it. Here's something that might blow your mind. After you cross $20,000, the danger usually isn't one stupid purchase. It's that you start running a convenience tab because you can. And the tab has a predictable size. For a lot of people, it's 1% to 3% of their cash per month that quietly leaks out just because you stop saying no to small frictions. On 20 grand, that's $200 to $600 a month. That's not a vibe. That's rent-level money. Only surprised you owe money. Here's a trap I call the cash deductible. When you have $20,000, a $420 fee feels like, fine, whatever. So you pay the cancellation penalty to exit a software contract early. Then you pay $190 to reschedule a flight instead of taking the credit. Then you pay $260 for expedited shipping because you don't want to wait 2 weeks. Individually, none of those are irresponsible. Together, that's $870 in 1 month for nothing you can point to later. And this is where 2 people split. Person A treats the $20,000 like a cushion, and the cushion turns into a sponge. It absorbs every little inconvenience until it's just smaller. Person B treats the $20,000 like a job with rules. They cap relief spending at, say, $150/week, and anything above that has to replace something else. Same money, completely different trajectory. But perhaps the most significant change is what happens next. After $20,000, money starts responding to what you tolerate, because your standards quietly become your spending plan. Here's what nobody talks about. After $20,000, the biggest upgrade isn't what you can buy, it's what you can refuse. Money starts following rules the moment you stop using it to soothe every little spike of stress and start using it to enforce standards. First, you stop negotiating with chaos. Say you're a freelancer clearing $7,200 a month, and you've been doing the I'll figure it out later system. With $20,000 in actual rules, you set a floor. $6,000 stays untouched as your operating buffer, and $5,000 becomes a separate boring account for taxes and insurance. Now, when you're soft, stop burning mental energy on predictable expenses. Second, you start buying time in ways that actually multiply, not fancy convenience, but targeted leverage. Example. You batch all your client onboarding into 1 day a week and pay $89/month for a scheduling tool, plus $120/month for a part-time bookkeeper to reconcile transactions. That's $209/month. If that saves you even 3 hours of admin and 1 hour of where did my money go anxiety, and you use those 4 hours to land one extra $650 task each month, the system pays for itself and then some. The rule is, if it gives you back billable hours or reduces costly mistakes, it's not an expense, it's a tool. Third, you stop being easy to pressure. A client asks for just one more round and dangles future work. Old you says yes because you're scared of the gap. New you has a rule. Scope changes are $175 per revision, paid before delivery. And because you're not desperate, you can say it calmly. Half the time they pay. The other half, they vanish. Either way, your schedule gets cleaner and your income gets less chaotic. Fourth, you stop letting random timing dictate your life. Your laptop starts glitching and you don't panic buy the highest spec model at midnight. You have a replacement rule. $1,800 sits in a sinking fund, and if the machine dies, you replace it within 24 hours without touching your buffer. That one rule prevents the emergency purchase tax, where you overpay because you're rushed. And psychologically, this is the real shift. Your brain stops treating every decision like it's attached to survival. Less decision fatigue, less cortisol-y what-if spirals. You start making fewer, cleaner choices, because you already decided the rules when you were calm. But let's address the elephant in the room. If $20,000 is enough to change your behavior, it's also enough to disappear fast if you keep letting convenience set your standards. So next, we need to talk about the rules that protect the $20,000 from you, specifically the rules that stop lifestyle creep from dressing up as finally living. The objection is obvious. Okay, cool, rules, but I don't have $20,000 sitting there. And even if I did, it would get eaten by life. Fair. The good news is, you don't need a perfect month or a massive raise. You need a system that makes your money obey you before your mood gets a vote. Start with one non-negotiable. Your $20,000 is not one pile. It's 4 jobs. Try this split. $12,000 is your buffer, untouchable unless income stops. $3,000 is a replacement fund for boring but expensive tools and travel. $3,000 is a buy time fund for outsourcing and fees that protect your calendar, and $2,000 is your opportunity fund for anything that increases earning power. If you can't do those exact numbers yet, do the same ratios on your current savings. The key is that each dollar has a rule and a boundary. Next, write 3 automatic no's that stop lifestyle creep from cosplaying as progress. Mine would be, no new monthly subscriptions unless an old one is canceled that day. They're anti-regret rules. They stop the slow conversion of savings into permanent obligations. Now, before we dive into earning more, lock down leakage with 120-minute audit. Open your bank app and scroll the last 30 days. Circle every recurring charge and every small fee. Then set a cap. Total recurring lifestyle spending can't exceed 8% of your take-home. If you're netting $4,500/month, that cap is $360. Anything above that is stealing from the $20,000 rule set. Let's do some uncomfortable math on how you actually reach $20,000. If you can redirect $18/day, that's about $540/month. Add one extra $250 invoice each month, one small project, one consult call, one overtime shift, whatever fits your life. That's $790/month. In a year, that's $9,480. Do it for 2 years and you're basically there, even if you have a few messy months. The first step is the hardest, because it feels like restriction. What else is there perfect stressing? But once you hit your first $5,000 buffer, something flips. You stop negotiating with every bill. At $10,000, you stop accepting low-quality clients or chaotic shifts just in case. Around $20,000, you stop being a person who hopes things work out and become a person who schedules outcomes. And yeah, it takes effort. Some months you'll miss the target. The difference usually comes down to one factor. Do you have rules written down before life gets loud? Or are you making money decisions in real time while stressed? Because money loves stress. Rules don't. So there you have it. The 12 rules money starts following after $20,000. Isn't about becoming rich. It's about crossing the line where your money stops reacting to life and starts controlling the options you get to pick from. Most people think the hardest part is earning more. They're wrong. The hardest part is refusing to make temporary exceptions that quietly drag you back under the line, because the second you treat your savings like a suggestion, every expense starts negotiating again. If you're at $700 or $3,200 or $11,000 right now, don't panic. Pick one rule you can enforce without a committee meeting in your brain. Here's an easy starter that fits the $20,000 moment. Set a hard floor number and protect it like it's a locked room. Maybe your floor is $2,500 at first. When you hit it, you don't spend below it for anything that isn't rent, utilities, groceries, or a real emergency. Then raise the floor to $5,000, then $10,000. That's how you build the $20,000 identity without needing perfect months. And when you finally hit $20,000, do one thing immediately. Write your rules on a single note in your phone titled $20,000 Rules and keep it pinned. Because the whole point is to stop deciding from stress. Memorable line to keep. At $20K, money stops being what you have and starts being what you can refuse. If this helped, subscribe. More videos like this are coming.